Are you worried about seeing your arms thinner, flabbier, and more aged in the mirror? Apply this mixture to your arms for 7 days and firm your skin. And at the end, I will reveal the most common mistakes that prevent this mixture from working properly. Alright, let's begin. The mixture you will see today is extremely simple, and you only need 2 ingredients that you probably already have at home: baking soda and water. Baking soda is a compound with a fine and slightly alkaline texture, which allows it to act as a gentle physical exfoliant when mixed with water. Its main value within this type of routine is its ability to mechanically remove dead skin cells that accumulate on the most superficial layer of the skin. This buildup is one of the main reasons why the skin can look dull, lackluster, or have an uneven texture. In addition, baking soda is also used by many people for its ability to clean superficial residues that adhere to the skin, such as dried sweat remains, environmental particles, or excess sebum. This cleansing action contributes to the skin surface feeling more light and less loaded with visible impurities, which directly influences the overall appearance of the arms. Another interesting aspect of baking soda is its action on texture. By acting on the outer layer of the skin, it helps soften rough areas that usually appear on the arms over time. On the other hand, water fulfills an equally important function within this mixture. Water acts as the vehicle that regulates the intensity of the baking soda, since by itself it could be too abrasive if used directly in powder form. By mixing it with water, its friction is reduced and it transforms into a softer paste, which allows a more controlled application on the skin. The amount of water used also influences the final result of the mixture. With little water, the paste will be thicker and will have a slightly more intense exfoliating effect due to the greater concentration of solid particles. With more water, the mixture becomes more fluid and soft, which decreases friction on the skin. This balance is key to adapting the mixture to different skin types. Before continuing, tell me the word health in the comments if you commit to applying this mixture starting today. Alright, now pay very close attention to the correct preparation, because this is where most people make mistakes. In a small container, add 1 teaspoon of baking soda and little by little add water until forming a creamy paste. The texture should be similar to a thick cream. It should not be too liquid, because it will slide and will not adhere well to the skin. This detail is very important. A key point that almost nobody takes into account is that the baking soda must completely integrate with the water before applying it. If there are lumps left undissolved, these can generate irregular friction on the skin, which causes uneven exfoliation. That is why it is recommended to mix slowly, gently, crushing possible lumps against the walls of the container until achieving a uniform consistency. This homogeneity in the mixture is what allows the contact with the skin to be more controlled and even. Another important detail is the proportion. Although the base recipe is simple, the amount of water can vary slightly depending on the skin type. If the skin is more sensitive or dry, a little more water is usually added to soften the effect. If the skin is more resistant or presents a greater accumulation of rough texture, the paste can remain a little thicker to slightly increase the exfoliating action. This fine adjustment in the texture is what many people ignore, and it makes the difference in the sensation during the application. It is also recommended to prepare the mixture right before using it and not let it sit for too long. As the minutes pass, the baking soda can settle at the bottom of the container, which causes the mixture to lose uniformity. This can cause that when applying it, some areas have more concentration of product than others, generating an uneven application on the skin. Now comes the correct application. Before applying the mixture, wash your arms well with warm water. This helps remove dirt, accumulated grease, and allows the skin to be more receptive. The use of warm water is important because it helps slightly soften the surface of the skin and facilitates that the pores feel more relaxed, which allows a better distribution of the mixture. Then dry gently with a clean towel without rubbing too much. This step is key because the skin should not remain either completely wet or completely irritated by friction. Gentle drying helps maintain the surface stable for the application of the baking soda without generating additional sensitivity. Now take a small amount of the mixture and begin applying it, making upward circular movements. It is important not to apply all the mixture at once, but rather work by sections of the arm to ensure a more uniform contact. Starting from the lower part of the arm and progressively moving upward with ascending movements helps distribute the mixture better over the entire surface. The pressure during the application is also a key factor. It should be gentle enough to not irritate the skin, but constant to allow the baking soda particles to perform their exfoliating action in a controlled way. Many people make the mistake of pressing too hard, which can generate unnecessary redness and subsequent sensitivity. Finally, it is recommended to observe how the skin responds during the application. If too much friction or discomfort is felt, the ideal thing is to add a few additional drops of water to the mixture to soften it at that same moment. This type of real-time adjustment allows adapting the texture to the sensitivity of the skin without the need to stop the process. Subscribe to the channel if this video is being useful to you. Now then, one of the most common mistakes is reusing the mixture that has already been prepared beforehand. Many people save it for the next day thinking that it will continue working the same. But in reality, the texture changes. The baking soda settles and loses uniformity, which makes the application irregular and less effective. With the passage of time, the mixture can separate into phases, with the powder accumulating at the bottom of the container and leaving a more liquid part on the surface, which causes each application to have a different concentration of product. It is also a very common mistake to apply the mixture on areas of the skin that present previous irritation or sensitivity without having noticed it beforehand. In some cases, small chafing, extreme dryness, or micro lesions can go unnoticed, but when coming into contact with the baking soda, they can generate discomfort or a burning sensation. This happens because the baking soda acts directly on the skin surface, and when the skin barrier is already compromised, the sensation can be much more intense than usual. That is why it is important to always check the skin before beginning the application, carefully observing if there are reddened, flaky, or especially dry areas that may react negatively. Another common mistake is using metallic utensils to prepare the mixture and letting it rest in them for a long time. Although it may seem like a minor detail, some containers can slightly alter the consistency of the baking soda with the water, affecting the uniformity of the paste. In addition, when the mixture is left in prolonged contact with certain metals, it can change its physical stability, causing the texture to lose homogeneity more quickly. That is why many people prefer to use glass or plastic containers to maintain the stability of the mixture and ensure that the preparation remains as uniform as possible from the very first moment of use. Also, many people make the mistake of applying the mixture in large quantities, thinking that a thicker layer will give better results. In reality, this can generate difficulty when removing it afterward and provoke an unnecessary feeling of tightness in the skin. A layer that is too thick not only complicates the rinsing, but it can also make the baking soda remain longer than necessary in contact with the skin, increasing the possibility of dryness. A thin and uniform layer is usually enough to obtain an adequate application and allows the product to act in a balanced way over the entire surface of the arm. Another important point is not observing the reaction of the skin during the first minutes. Some skin types can react more sensitively than others, and not paying attention to signals such as slight redness or discomfort can cause the mixture to continue being applied when the ideal thing would be to adjust the intensity or suspend the application. The skin usually gives small early signals of how it is reacting, such as a slight feeling of warmth or tightness, and ignoring them can lead to a less comfortable experience or unnecessary overexposure to the product. Finally, a mistake that many people overlook is not completely removing the mixture after the recommended time. If baking soda residues remain on the skin, they can continue acting even after the initial rinse, provoking a progressive feeling of dryness or roughness. This happens because the fine particles can remain adhered in folds or less visible areas of the arm. That is why it is essential to make sure to rinse the arms well with warm water, carefully checking the entire surface until no visible residue of the product remains and the skin feels completely clean and soft to the touch. And here comes a fundamental part that almost nobody mentions. After using baking soda, the skin needs hydration. That is why immediately after removing the mixture, you should apply a moisturizing cream, coconut oil, or some gentle lotion to avoid dryness. This step can make an enormous difference in how the skin looks after the treatment. Applying a moisturizing product immediately afterward not only helps restore softness, but also helps maintain superficial elasticity and the feeling of comfort in the skin. Moisturizing creams with ingredients such as glycerin, hyaluronic acid, or shea butter are usually especially useful in this type of routine since they help retain moisture in the skin for a longer time. Coconut oil, on the other hand, creates a light film that helps reduce the loss of hydration, leaving a sensation of more flexible skin. Aloe vera is also used by many people because it provides a soothing sensation after exfoliation. Tell me in the comments where you are from and how old you are. I will be reading every message. Alright, now I want to share with you some tips that many people find useful when doing this routine. The first is to do the application at night, since during that moment the skin enters a natural process of repair and rest. The second tip is to be consistent. Many people quit after 1 or 2 days expecting immediate miraculous results, but consistency is the key. The skin does not change instantly, but through progressive processes of superficial renewal. That is why maintaining a stable routine allows external care to accumulate over time and generate a more lasting sensation of softness and visual improvement. The third tip is to drink enough water, because hydration from the inside also greatly influences how the skin looks on the outside. Water participates in the elasticity and overall appearance of the skin, since it contributes to keeping it more flexible and less dry. When the body is well hydrated, the skin tends to look more uniform and with a better overall texture, which complements any external routine. And the fourth tip is to avoid exposing the arms to the sun immediately after using the mixture, since the skin can remain temporarily more sensitive. Sun exposure at that moment can increase the sensation of irritation or dryness, since the skin has recently been exfoliated and is in a more delicate state. That is why many people prefer to do this type of routine at times when there is no direct sun exposure or when the arms can remain protected. In addition, something that few people consider is the importance of clothing after the application. Wearing very tight garments immediately afterward can generate friction on the recently treated skin, which can reduce the sensation of softness or cause discomfort. That is why it is recommended in many cases to wear light and comfortable clothing after performing the routine to allow the skin to remain in a more stable state. Now, I want to share with you some testimonials from people who tried this routine. Carmen, 72 years old, commented that after several days she began to notice her arms softer and with a less rough appearance. Maria, 75 years old, said that what surprised her most was how the texture of her skin visually improved when combining this routine with daily hydration. Isabella, 65 years old, assured that in addition to the mixture, she began doing small arm exercises and noticed a better overall appearance in the firmness of the skin. These testimonials reflect something interesting. Beyond a single application, many people perceive progressive changes in the sensation of the skin when they integrate this routine within several care habits. In the case of texture, one of the most mentioned aspects is the reduction of superficial roughness, which is usually one of the first concerns in mature skin on the arms. Because, yes, here comes something very important. The skin on the arms does not depend only on what you apply externally. Nutrition, protein intake, hydration, and physical movement also play a huge role. Even simple exercises with water bottles or gentle arm movements can help the area look more toned over time. This is because the underlying muscle directly influences the external appearance of the skin. When there is less muscular activity in the arm area, the skin can look more saggy or without visual support. On the other hand, when the muscles are stimulated regularly, even with light movements, a firmer base is generated that helps improve the overall appearance of the contour of the arm. Now then, there is something you must understand very clearly. This mixture does not replace medical treatments nor completely eliminate deep flaccidity, but many people use it as part of a natural personal care routine to temporarily improve the appearance of the skin. It is important to understand that this type of routine works more as superficial aesthetic support than as a structural solution. Deep flaccidity is usually related to changes in the internal structure of the skin, such as the loss of collagen and elasticity. So, external care mainly helps improve the sensation of softness, visible texture, and overall appearance, but it does not completely modify the internal structure of the skin. Even so, many people find value in these routines because they allow them to recover a sensation of constant personal care and keep the skin on their arms with a more cared-for appearance in their day-to-day life. Share this video with friends and family so they can discover this miraculous mixture. Discover the mixture of 3 oils that rejuvenate your skin in days. Click here. See you in the next video.